Evening, everybody. And it's morning over here. I'm dialing in from Singapore. I'm Alfred, and Robin and we are, the two coordinators for this working group. So we're just going to spend perhaps the first 15 minutes just to share with you all, what the working group has been up to and what we have been doing. So I'm going to share my slides. So we have entitled this session as The Hope is in the Gathering, sharing by the LGBTQ plus and allies working group. And as I was reflecting on the why of our gathering, and especially during this time of disruption, this time where so many different things are happening that are troubling to us, just simply to be able to gather as we are is in itself an act of hope. And I think there's something really profoundly human in gathering, even as we talk about technology, that technology enables that gathering. Or perhaps it is the gathering that calls for that technology. So I'm going to hand over to Robin first just to share with us the vision that we have for this working group. And before that, just how the session will run. We have a presentation first, a ritual experience, and then we'll close with some announcements, and then we will end the evening, or for me, the start of the morning. Yeah.
Okay, so at the REA meeting in 2021, that's when the idea of this working group was born, and so formed after the 2021 REA annual meeting on gender, sexuality, and wholeness. This working group aims to build an international, inclusive, and collegial community of LGBTQ plus members and allies within the Guild. We welcome everyone who shares our vision of being a think tank of queering religious education and providing collegial support to cultivate the vocation of LGBTQ religious educators and scholars. Can you move to the next slide? Okay, so to that end, what have we been up to for the last 4 years? And I realized I was like, those 4 years went by really, really, really quickly. After that meeting in 2021, after REA meeting, we met again in November. There was folks from the meeting in July, and other folks joined. And at that meeting, we did it was very exciting. Because there were so many possibilities of what this working group could be, we did a brainstorm. I think it was like a page and a half of ideas. And then after that meeting, Alfred and I got together and go, what? What are we going to do? So for our first gathering, after that, we prepared a ritual for the July 2022 REA meeting. And that meeting was on becoming good ancestors, courageously co-creating and voicing our queer ancestors of faith. And so what we did was we created a ritual that called on our ancestors, that grounded us in faith and activism and courage and spirituality to help us become better, both queer and straight elders, and better religious educators. And people called on artists, whether they were in this room or not, activists, family members, teachers, and whether they were out or not. Some people were not maybe publicly, and some people were still not out. And people called on anybody that gave them that, like I said, that grounding to be a queer ancestor. The next thing was in November, there was in order to fulfill our efforts to support LGBTQ and religious educators and scholars. In November of 2022, we invited a presentation by Dr. Chung Fei Chin. I hope I pronounced that right. From Singapore University of Social Science, where he shared ethical issues that arise from counseling LGBTQ people of faith, LGBTQ mental health risks, challenges, and dilemmas, and mental health healing strategies. And that meeting was so successful. We were like, aha, we know that one of the things we really wanted to do was have formal presentations of scholars research. In July of 2022, at the REA meeting, we held space and shared, because one of the things that we, as Alfred says, is that the gathering is, and it is very important for us to see each other, to support each other, to hear what the work of each other's, or the challenges, and and to see each other. Even if it was on Zoom, it does help us build community. And we've made connections with people over this 4 years. So the next thing, again, as part of our goal to support the work of LGBTQ religious educators and scholars, we invited Dr. Cheryl Metzner, who is the REA Justice, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Officer for REA, and who is now in the UK at her graduation right now, because she's usually at these meetings, but she's taking care of the business of graduating. And she shared her dissertation entitled Homesteading on the Journey of LGBTQ plus Spirituality, Movements of Making a Home for the Self, where she maps the path of spirituality based on the lived experience of Canadians who claimed an LGBTQ identity. As another part of that meeting, we had Dr. Michael Campos from De La Salle University in Manila to provide feedback to Dr. Metzner, and as she prepared for her PhD defense. And we were very excited about that meeting. And we were saying, and it just really brought it home to us that one of the things we really wanted to do is have that fall meeting be a presentation of scholars' work, because it was so far it really was very very impactful. So in July of 2024, again, we met at the REA meeting to hold space, to share ideas, and to get ideas for our fall event. And one of the things that was lifted up is work around queer youths of faith. So we definitely have that in our minds too, as an area that we definitely want to focus on. In November of 2024, we did have Dr. Ish Ruiz, who's the assistant professor of Latinx and queer decolonial theology at the Pacific School of Religion in California, present his recently published book, LGBTQ plus Educators in Catholic Schools, Embracing Synodality, Inclusivity, and Justice. And in this book, he responds to the controversy of firing LGBTQ educators and allies from Catholic schools throughout the US, and he presents a new theological framework. And you'll have to read the book to find out what the new framework is. And so all of that brings us brilliantly to today, where this meeting, where we are right now, where the hope is in the gathering and sharing by the LGBTQ-Allies Working Group. And with that, I will turn it back over to Alfred.
So let me say how grateful I am for Robin to do this together with me, because I remember in 2021 when this working group was set up and we kind of put ourselves out there to be the coordinators. We had no idea. Just simply because of how the working group came about. It didn't in the first place come about having some kind of issue or topic that people want to work on, which raises the whole question about what working groups are for. I think after 2021, there was this recognition. How is it that we did not start talking about sexuality and gender in religious education explicitly? And there was a recognition then there needs to be a group that holds space for these group of scholars. So just thinking back as we were preparing for this presentation, just looking back at how the working group came about and the circumstances was in some way quite distinctive. It was not a group of scholars who decided to get together to do a topic. It was simply just to open up a space to gather people who may in some way need to be seen and heard in the LGBT community, and to share work and scholarship done in the area of sexuality and gender. So what you have here is just a way to put down what we talked about during our envisioning. Um, so at the center, you would see the three goals: building an inclusive and collegial community, being a think tank for queering religious education, and cultivating the vocation of LGBTQ plus religious educators. The five, the what surrounds it are what I call the five things we consider when trying to work towards these goals, these five dimensions. And I hope they were reflected somewhat as Robin described and explained what the working group has been about. The first one would be really great intentionality in trying to create spaces for people to learn from and support one another in the particular challenges and opportunities that arise for ministering to LGBTQ plus communities in different parts of the world. So really, there's a real intentionality to create a space, a communal space for learning. And you would also have a sense that the next one's on intersectionality. It's really trying to create a space where we can learn from and support one another. And it's also recognizing the complex, diverse experiences of LGBTQ plus people in our faith communities. So you notice the scholars that they come is just not just from the Europe American sphere, but we have people from the Philippines, from Singapore. It's really trying to create a space where multiple voices can be presented, you know, uh, and multiple voices to mutually critique each other's work. And the focus is also educational. It's focused on religious education, theological education, or broad educational questions, that are raised around how, the experiences of LGBTQ people push us to rethink the way we educate in faith, push us to rethink our vision of what education could be and has to be in order for the full flourishing of our humanity. And tied together, these two, advocacy and decolonizing, we put it there, but these are the two things we haven't really been looking or rather emphasizing on. But advocacy definitely appears there to think about, how religious education is connected to the action for justice to promote the human flourishing of LGBTQ plus people in their families, schools, and communities, to kind of solicit public support of the REA and other groups for those who suffer bigotry, discrimination, and harm because of their sexuality and gender identity. Um, and the last piece there is a kind of decolonizing strand there where we also aim to lift up post-colonial visions of religious and sexual gender integrity with a turn to local or indigenous traditions and histories as a resource. So basically what we have here in the diagram is really kind of a way for us to have a framework around how we operate that there are these three goals, and these are like the five principles in which we try to keep in mind as we try to work toward realizing these three goals. And I hope they get reflected in the activities that we have. So far, it really has been just making a real point together, more than just simply coming together at the REA annual meeting. And Robin and I have been quite intentional to say we can't just wait for the next meeting to meet and what the meeting is for. So the fall gatherings have been something that we try to consistently, put up. And we were toying with the idea of even having a spring gathering, but we'll see. But because of work commitments and all, it was just really difficult to get people together for the spring gathering.